Assalamualaikum. My partner name is Nohidayah binti Roslan and myself is Natasha Farhani binti Asudin. We would like to present a study on influence factors toward deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. First is the research background. Actually, this research main aim was to examine the influence factors toward deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. Deviant consumer behavior can be defined as consumer action which are contrary to the law or regulation or which violate generally accepted standard of conduct. In general, behavior defined as deviant when it differs from some norm or standard. In the context of custom, ethic, rules and regulation, laws and more, it is depending on the society or community to consider whether it was unwanted, inappropriate and unreliable behavior. In fact, this study was conducted to give knowledge to the other researchers on the proposed relationship since there is insufficient study conducted on this topic. These factors, which is include individual, parenting and peers, have been found out to be correlated with the dependent variable, which is deviant consumer behavior, by using Pearson correlation method. Every issue have its own problem. Same goes to this topic. Thus, according to Berita Harian Online, in year 2019, whereby teenager pinch food in Family Mart has been viral for his deviant behavior. According to News Straits Times, Malaysia's newest MRT station has been vandalized within 1 week opening. The owner of MRT Corp also forks out thousands of ringgit just to fix all the damage. Besides, according to Daily Mail UK Online, there was a case that a flight attendant has been treated rudely by a tourist from China. The tourist threw instant noodle along with hot water toward the flight attendants. Prior to the objective of this study, it is to determine the influence factors toward deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. So, we will proceed to our research objective and research question. Research question consists of three, which is: first, what is the level of deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban? Second, what is the relationship on the factor which is individual, parenting and peer of deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban? And our last research question is: what is the most significant relationship influence deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban? After that, we will see on the research objective. First is to examine the level of deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. Second objective is to examine the relationships on the factor which is individual, parenting and peer of deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. And our last objective is to examine the most significant relationship that influence deviant consumer behavior among students at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. So, we proceed to the conceptual framework. This figure presents the conceptual framework which state that the level of deviant consumer behavior has a connection with the three independent variables, which is individual, parenting and peers. According to Title 1980 and Call 1989, as cited by Dudson 2040, deterrence theory explained that individual makes a decision to fulfill the intention and pleasure after considering on cost and benefit of certain action. The study has found that if level of deterrent present in marketplace is lower, individual will seize the opportunity to engage in deviant consumer behavior. Moreover, in this study, too lenient parents also will make children tend to act negatively, as parents practically do not care about the children, as too much freedom and no sense of educating implemented. In this space, peers also playing an important role for a person's development, where people spend more than half of their time with friends instead of family. So, peers, people who are close to the person, indirectly influence and give impact on them in every decision making, which leads to certain action, whether it is positive or not. Proceed to the hypothesis of this study. First is for H null 1, there is no significant relationship between individual towards deviant consumer behavior, while H alternative 1, there is significant relationship between individual towards deviant consumer behavior. Second, H null, there is no significant relationship between parenting toward deviant consumer behavior, and H alternative 2 is there is significant relationship between parenting toward deviant consumer behavior. H-NAT3, there is no significant relationship between peers to deviant consumer behavior, while H alternative 3, there is significant relationship between peers towards deviant consumer behavior. Lastly, H null 4, there is no most significant factor influence to deviant consumer behavior, while H alternative 4, there is most significant factor influence to deviant consumer behavior. So we proceed for the research method. First is research design, which is quantitative method is used in this study. Cross-sectional survey will be used because the data collection will be collected at a particular time to answer all. It is according Sekaran and Bugi 2009. Second is unit of analysis, which student at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. The third is for the sample size. It was the total population of respondents at UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban are 4,884 students, but for the respondent for this study was 150 students. In this study, we use non-probability sampling method, which is convenience and snowball sampling. This is because it was easiest method to reach people. For the data measurement, we use Likert measurement, which represent 1 is strongly disagree, 2 disagree, 3 neutral, 4 agree, and 5 strongly agree. And we proceed to the data collection. In our questionnaire, it consists of 5 sections, which is section A, respondent information, section B, consumer deviant behavior, section C, parenting, section D, individual, and section E, peer. And last one is the data analysis. We use 3 types of data analysis. First, descriptive statistic, which is consists mean, standard, and standard deviation. Second, Pearson correlation, and third is multiple regression.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nuhidaya binti Roslan. Next, we move to finding. For the demographic, the most frequent gender is female with 87 respondents with 58%. For the age of respondent, the most frequent is 21 years and above, whereby there were 112 respondents with 74.7%. For the faculty, the most frequent is from FSPPP, whereby there were 66 respondents from that faculty, which represent 44%. For the current academic undertaking, most of the respondents were degree students, whereby there were 102 respondents with 68%. For the current CGPA, the most frequent is 3.0 to 3.49 with 86 respondents with 57.3%. For the frequency of shopping in a week, most respondents go to shop 1 to 3 days in a week with 89 respondents, which is 59.3%. For hypothesis testing, the objective is to examine the level of deviant consumer behavior by using mean descriptive, with the result of the mean was 1.722, while the standard deviation was 0.679. Next, the second objective was to examine the relationship between individual and level of deviant consumer behavior by using Pearson correlation, whereby the result was 0.00 for the p-value and the value of R was 0.779. Therefore, HA1 are accepted and rejected HO1. The third objective is to examine the relationship between parents and level of deviant consumer behavior by using Pearson correlation, with result of p-value was 0.022 and R was 0.186. Therefore, HA2 are accepted and rejected HO2. Next, the objective is to examine the relationship between peers and level of deviant consumer behavior by using Pearson correlation, with the result of p-value was 0.00 while the value of R was 0.620. Therefore, HA3 are accepted and rejected HO3. Lastly, the objective is to examine the most significant relationship influence the deviant consumer behavior by using multiple regression. The result shows that the highest beta value was individual for 0.704. So the individual factor have the most significant relationship influence the deviant consumer behavior among students in UiTM Negeri Sembilan, Campus Seremban. For research recommendation, the first one is to tighten control on business premises. This is to avoid from the consumer go beyond limits. CCTV must be installed all over the business premises. The second recommendation is to create awareness or campaign on deviant consumer behavior. This is due to lack of education on consumer-related matters. The campaign on consumerism needs to be implemented to ensure that we can produce smart consumer. The third recommendation is to monitor and educate children from home. Early monitoring from parents is very important to ensure that children do not involve in deviant behavior. For the limitation of study, it is difficult to get respondents during pandemic crisis. As a recommendation, researchers should always engage with respondents in order to be more interested in answering the questionnaire provided. The next limitation is limited sample, whereby the respondents are among students in UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. The sample should be wider than this. Lastly, the limitation of study is quantitative study lack of in-depth, whereby the result may not always be broadly indicative of the actual occurrence. So, the researchers should be more focused on the accuracy of the data collected for this study. In conclusion, this research main aim was to examine the influence factor towards deviant consumer behavior among students in UiTM Negeri Sembilan Campus Seremban. In fact, this study was conducted to give knowledge to the other researchers on the proposed relationship, since there is insufficient study conducted on this topic. The factors, which are individual, parents, and peers, have been found out to be correlated with the dependent variable, which is deviant consumer behavior, by using Pearson correlation method.
Thank you, that's all from us.